So the bank we had just dropped us like a ball of rocks with a phone call and canceled all our accounts because apparently corporate found out we had our hemp permit and they weren't interested in doing business. Put us in a really big bind in a really quick fashion.
That's Herb Grove from Brush Mountain in Center County, Pennsylvania. This is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. Hi there, my name is Eric Herlock. Welcome back to The Hemp Show. Today's show is in 3 acts about what it means to claim the future of hemp, not wait for it, not ask permission for it, but claim it. Because whether you're building a coalition, launching a certification system, or just trying to hold on to your livelihood, the fight for hemp's future is real and it's happening right now. Today we're going to hear 3 stories from 3 corners of the hemp world, each one showing what it takes to push this industry forward despite the noise, the stigma, and the roadblocks. In Act 1, we go to Virginia, where now the month of June has officially become Virginia Hemp Month. I'll be talking to a couple of grassroots advocates who are working to reclaim the word hemp.
We're trying to really separate industrial hemp from all cannabinoid-bearing hemp and cannabis.
In Act 2, we talk to Eric Singular, who's helping launch a global certification program that could give fiber hemp something it's never really had: verifiable credibility in the global supply chain.
Every fiber that is used in clothing and apparel and home textiles has certification around it. And hemp was kind of a territory that really no one had developed anything for.
And in Act 3, we head back to Brush Mountain, where just having a hemp permit cost Herb Grove his bank accounts last year. So frustrating. Anyway, that's our show today, right after these messages. Our show is made possible this week with support from I&D Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana, where they believe in the goodness of hemp. Check them out at indhemp.com. And also King's Agri-Seeds here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where hemp specialist Sarah Mitchell is working hard for the industry. And stay tuned, there will be an announcement, hopefully in a few weeks, about a hemp event here in Pennsylvania in August, hosted by King's Agri-Seeds. And also, today's show is brought to you with support from Forever Green, distributors of the KP4 hemp cutter. Check them out at hempcutter.com. All right, welcome back. Act 1, Virginia Hemp Month. So June, as you know, is Hemp History Month. Right? And that's a great reminder that hemp has been with us for a really, really long time. But this year, a group of folks in Virginia, they've decided to push it a step further, turning it into something that isn't just about the past, but about the future. Right? And Virginia, much like Pennsylvania, has a really rich history with hemp. You know, in Virginia, they've got George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and all of these super cool things. So today, we're going to talk to Joe Domino and Scott McStacy from the Virginia Hemp Coalition about what they've got in store to celebrate hemp in Virginia in the month of June. I'm here with Joe Domino and Scott McStacy, and you guys are in Virginia. So I wonder if we can just give us a quick intro, Joe, and then Scott.
All right, my name is Joe Domino. I am one of the marketing directors with Redfern Hemp Company. We're located in Caroline County, and we're also members of the Virginia Hemp Coalition, which is a statewide grassroots advocacy group. We pushed for legalization here in Virginia very early on once the Farm Bill was passed federally. It was 2019. And Virginia Hemp Month is kind of the evolution of now we're really trying to get other people to join the coalition, environmental groups and hempcrete enthusiasts.
All right. Scott, quick introduction.
I'm Scott McStacy. I live here in Virginia. I'm also in the Virginia Hemp Coalition as a board member. We recently opened a group called the Virginia Hemp Coalition Industrial Hemp Working Group. And what we're doing is we're trying to really separate industrial hemp from all cannabinoid-bearing hemp and cannabis.
You're speaking my language, Scott. You're speaking my language.
Yes. And you know, this language is important because we have been held back for so long, and that doesn't need to happen anymore. And so that's some of the things that we're working on here in Virginia.
All right. So June is Hemp History Month, and now we learn it's also Virginia Hemp Month, right? So that's super cool. So I know Virginia, like Pennsylvania, has a really deep old history with colonial usage of hemp. So what's in store for Virginia Hemp Month? Like what are we doing? How are we going to celebrate this?
So the idea was to tap into that Virginia history. I mean, Colonial Williamsburg, I got to give them a lot of credit because they've done a lot of the groundwork of bringing this history back to the forefront. Like George Washington's field tent was made out of hemp rope and linens. So yeah, we're really trying to focus on the culture and also what Scott was saying, the industrial side of the plant, the environmental side of the plant. And we just feel like it's getting lost in the conversation because of the cannabinoids.
Yeah, it feels like they've co-opted the word hemp. Hemp has meant this one thing for 1,000 years, but then, it also means it's like a drift, a semantic drift that's happening. And I feel like, I don't know, that's a battle I'm waging right now, like to hold on to the word hemp and to, get people to realize that hemp is not weed. Anyway, so what kind of things are you guys planning this month that, maybe listeners can come join in on? Like, how do people get in on the celebrations of Virginia Hemp Month?
So 2 weekends this month, we're going to be holding a hempcrete workshop on the farm with Redfern Farms. We're going to be building a small outhouse, actually, out of hempcrete on a hemp farm. So it's going to be a lot of fun. That's the 14th and 15th, as well as the 28th and 29th.
Well, that's cool. And then I understand there is maybe a screening of the Green Buffalo film. Can we talk about that?
Sure. So June 25th in the historic Ashland Theater, we will be viewing the Green Buffalo, and we'll have panels. And I've actually asked Danny to be there via internet.
Danny Desjardins from the Lower Sioux Indian
From the
community.
Lower Sioux, correct, yeah. See, I have a very special relationship with the Lower Sioux. Danny is the first person that I called to get help with hempcrete.
Oh,
and
okay.
He took my call, and he not only helped me, he mentored me. And I flew out there before I met you a few months and trained with those guys. And then I came back for the grand opening when we met.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And he
really is.
They're such an inspiration to all of us.
Yeah,
100%.
Talk about hope and resiliency and just the right attitude. And that's how we're going to get to the new paradigm, is by following people like Danny Desjardins.
And we also believe that the movie itself is going to be a great mechanism to get the Virginia federally recognized tribes involved. They've been thinking about hemp and things of that nature, but they really haven't explored it seriously.
All right. So what should people be doing if they want to come down and spend some time celebrating hemp in Virginia this month?
So there's a website, virginiahempmonth.com, and on there you see all the events scheduled. We have a bee workshop the 21st. So we're actually on the Redfern farm. We have some beehives, and we're working with the Ashland Beekeeper Association. So they're going to be doing a whole workshop, and you can come see, put on the bee suit and things like that and see the hemp growing. But then we'll also have a brewery event where the whole Virginia Hemp Coalition will be coming out at the Center of the Universe Brewery in Ashland, Virginia. And then we're wrapping up with the Hempcrete workshop, like Scott said, the 28th and the 29th. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, virginiahempmonth.com. And if you want to see the coalition, that's vahemp.org.
All right, great. I will put both of those links on the show page. Tell me a bit about Redfern Farm.
Yeah, so Graham Redfern, I'll have to say I met him. We were lobbying about 8 years ago, and he's never stopped since. So he is vertically integrated. So he also wants to grow for cannabinoids, but he also wants to figure out how we can do that alongside the fiber, alongside the stock business, because we work a lot with farmers as well. No one's going to grow 1,000 acres if you have to take the risk of chopping down your crop if it goes hot. So we do think these things need to find their own independent lane. But here in Virginia, we're under the Virginia Department of Agriculture, Consumer Services.
Okay.
We sell great products, the tinctures and things like that. But we want to get into bedding products and chicken feed and things like
Okay.
that. So,
All right. Yeah. I mean, I want to be clear that I'm not anti-cannabinoids at all, right? Like I love the cannabinoids, full spectrum. Absolutely. But I guess my issue is that, let's maybe not call them hemp.
it takes up all the air in the room. I mean, and this is why we want the Virginia Hemp Month to be focused more on. There's a big environmental movement in Virginia, and we want to bring these folks in the fold because hemp was meant for them, not smoke shops.
Well, I applaud your efforts to move the needle in Virginia. So, Joe Domino and Scott McStacy, thank you so much for joining me here today on the show.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, so that was Joe Domino and Scott McStacy from the Virginia Hemp Coalition. So if you want to celebrate hemp in Virginia this month, here's a recap of what they've got going on. There's a couple of hempcrete workshops at Red Fern Farm this weekend, June 14th and 15th, and then the last weekend in June, the 28th and 29th. There's a bee workshop, June 21st, and there's a screening of the Green Buffalo Patagonia film at the historic Ashland Theater on June 25th. You can find all the details at virginiahempmonth.com. All right, I'll have a link on the show page for that episode. Okay, Act 2. So much of the conversation around hemp, especially hemp fiber, is about potential. Hemp could be a solution for this. Hemp might replace that. Hemp is supposed to be good for the soil, good for the planet. That's the story. But what if it's not enough to just say that anymore? What if the brands that want to use hemp in textiles or packaging or anything else actually need proof? Well, that's where the responsible hemp standard comes in. Eric Singular, welcome back to the Hemp Show. How have you been?
I've been great, and it's a pleasure to be here as always, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. You're always doing something interesting in the hemp space, in the fiber space. So I was scrolling through the internet, as you do sometimes, and I saw something that caught my eye. It's the Responsible Hemp Standard, which you were connected with, which I was psyched to see that. And then if I understand this correctly, it's a global chain of custody certification program designed to bring traceability, transparency, and verified regenerative practices to the industrial hemp supply chain. Do I have that right?
You have it spot on, and I know there's a lot to unpack there.
Cool. Well, let's start unpacking that. So, what gap in the hemp supply chain led to the creation of the Responsible Hemp Standard? Was there a specific moment or experience that convinced you that this kind of traceability was necessary?
Yeah, that's an excellent starting point. And my initial involvement with INC Cert, which is the standard owner that developed this program, started about 2 years ago. They tapped me for my background and expertise in industrial hemp, which I was very, very honored and humbled by. And a lot of the development of this standard was done in conjunction with a group called Peterson Projects and Solutions, which is actually the sister company to an international certification body called Control Union, which has been around for about 100 years. They have offices in about 80 countries. And they were the ones who initially clued us into the textile space. And we've attended a number of textile trade shows and sustainability apparel conferences with them. And what became very obvious very quickly was that every material, every fiber that is used in clothing and apparel and home textiles has certification around it, has traceability and transparency and these programs and certifications and standards. And hemp, and I would say to some degree, bass fibers was kind of a territory that really no one had developed anything for. And it's not because there isn't hemp globally, hemp cultivation of fiber and that feeds into global textile supply chains. It's just comparatively very small, to organic, to polyester, or to cotton and polyester and man-made cellulosics. So that was kind of the genesis for where this came from and where my involvement in it started.
That's cool. All right. So how does the Responsible Hemp Standard define responsibility when it comes to industrial hemp production?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. So we toiled really to connect with experts in every part of the supply chain, because as the name suggests, or as the background suggests of a chain of custody standard, We're talking about field all the way to finished product. And so we had to bring in expertise for each of those different stages, on the cultivation side, on the processing side, and then on the textile manufacturing side. So really, I think probably starting with cultivation, what the standard looks at and tracks pretty closely against, I would say, is good agricultural practices. It was important for us, especially starting with this standard and this program for, what we consider a new fiber. It's obviously not new at all. It's very old, but, kind of new for the
times. Yeah.
For the times. Exactly. We didn't want to make it too restrictive. And it's not intended to be, something that would go up against the organic program. But really what it looks at is, if you look at a lot of the tenets of organic farming, organic practices, to some degree regenerative organic practices, one of the challenges there is that it requires a full farm transition. So you're talking about every crop that's grown on that piece of land, that land has to go through this very difficult, very lengthy and sometimes expensive process. What RHS looks at is just the cultivation of the industrial hemp crop for fiber, for the textile supply chain. It's just looking at the practices that are in place around the cultivation of that crop. It looks at, what is the grower doing to monitor soil health, water usage, how is the retting process occurring, and putting some parameters in place around that. It also contemplates a limited use of pesticides, which is not a big issue here domestically in the United States, since there's only 1 or 2 approved. But in Europe and other parts of the world, where there is a lot more pesticides that are approved for use on a hemp fiber crop, it does put some restrictions in place around those as well.
Okay, so it's like you said, it doesn't certify the whole farm, so it's sort of an easier way in. You can just kind of get your crop certified.
Yeah, I think what it does is that, really to kind of frame it more probably from the end of the supply chain backwards, is obviously we've seen a lot of storytelling on the brand side, brands that integrate and use hemp fiber in their apparel, to talk about why hemp is better, why it's superior, why it is more environmentally low impact than other fibers that could be used to make clothing. And what this does is it actually puts some accountability in place all the way back on every other part of the supply chain that led up to it becoming a finished garment, and says, this is the validation that this actually is use less water than cotton, didn't use harmful pesticides, didn't use retting practices that would be considered environmentally harmful. And then especially because hemp fiber and bast fibers are so different than cotton in the work that has to happen, at the decortication step and the decortication and cottonization. How do you get the fiber ready to become spinnable and be able to be spun with other fibers? That's a step that there really isn't a lot of transparency. The brands who are sourcing this, who want hemp fiber in their apparel, or the textile mills that are interested in sourcing hemp fiber, they really don't have a lot of conception about how that process is done and whether or not the practices that are involved in it, are really considered sustainable.
Right. Okay. So it's like the companies who are making the products, they can then they can tell those stories of how it was put together, and they can sort of fact check it along the way, like to put it into like journalism terms. Your certification kind of fact checks the story that they're telling about the product and the materials.
Exactly. Every part of the supply chain is audited, not by us, not by INC Cert, but by Control Union, which again is that international certification body who was a partner, I would say, in developing this program.
Okay. My next question is about, the benefit for farmers, small farmers, mid-scale producers. And I think we just sort of talked about that, like that ability to tell that story. That's really helpful in building your business. But what other kind of benefits does this service offer for growers?
Yeah, excellent question. And like a lot of things in hemp, growers were not the first group of people that we took this program to. In fact, they are really the last group of stakeholders involved in this process, because without a market, without somebody down the chain who's saying, hey, we want this certification and we're willing to pay a premium if we can source material that has been certified, no farmer is going to get, jump through another hoop. So really, with the rollout of this program, primarily we've been targeting apparel brands, but also textile mills. And I'm very lucky to work with some folks who have been working in the textile industry in Peru. And I give a little shout out to the National Industrial Hemp Council, IND Hemp, Guy Carpenter, who are all down on a trade mission this week in Lima. Lima, Peru is actually where the first textile mill in the world got this certification. And that was due to us having some excellent partners down there who have really been showing these really premium, high quality mills just what's possible with hemp fiber. So really the goal now is, now that we have a textile mill certified, they are now incentivized and are actively seeking to source from certified suppliers. So what does that mean? That means a decorticator that is certified and producing cottonized hemp fiber that is carrying the certification, which then means that those growers that are growing on contract for that decorticator would also be part of that, that certification. So it's really about pulling that all the way back and making sure that we're doing enough education and awareness building on the back end with the brands and the textile mills, that we're telling people that we have this certification program. This exists now for hemp. And if you're using hemp, there's no reason not to be at least exploring or interested in this program.
Okay, so you're not getting farmers to get this. It's for the other folks along the supply chain. And this is solely focused on fiber, and it's focused on hemp. Is there plans for other bast fibers?
There are plans for other bast fibers. That is, call it Q1 2026 goal for us, is to expand the scope of this standard to include other crops in the bast fiber category. I will say that, one of the things that we become very aware of, obviously Europe, they are the historical suppliers, Europe and Asia, but we've been really clued in Europe. They've been the historical suppliers of hemp fiber that is, textile grade and meeting the quality specifications and targets for these textile mills. And a lot of that infrastructure is shared between flax, linen, and hemp. So what became obvious is, okay, we're creating this hemp standard, but really a lot of the tenets of this program could easily be applied to this other crop. And what we need to do a lot more exploration on in the coming months is what would jute and kanaf look like in this program, because that's a fiber type that, while there's a big footprint for it globally, and we love looking every year at the Textile Exchange puts out this excellent report on kind of what is the percentage of different fibers that make up the clothing industry every year. Jute is a lot more than hemp as far as that bast fiber category. It's more than flax. But candidly, we're actually looking to connect with folks who have expertise in what that global supply chain looks like. And if anybody watching this knows somebody like that or is that person, we'd love to speak with you. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll put contact info on the show page for this episode so people can get in touch. You mentioned the mill down in Lima. Can you talk about maybe other brands that you're engaging with, other like early adopters, any like big brand names you can talk about?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say beyond the mill in Lima, we have gotten a textile mill in Turkey that has gotten certified. They are now actively looking to source from certified suppliers. We have been talking to a couple of brands for really a number of years about this program. Brands are interesting. They want you to kind of deliver the entire solution to their doorstep, which creates an interesting challenge. So, we're trying to build this up. And like I said, kind of with this now, I would say, more of an official launch for the program. It became auditable and open for applications in late fall last year, 2024. Right now, our push is to just make brands aware of this. And I would say that the denim industry, denim brands are a huge target for us, because a lot of the fiber that's going to be certified in this program coming out of Europe is kind of perfectly suited for denim fabric. And that really is a major target for us.
Cool. Okay. So the best way for people listening to get involved, go to the website, learn more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say get in touch. Anybody who is a stakeholder in the hemp fiber or hemp fiber textile supply chain, we are eager to talk to you, kind of explore what your role is. Also, I mean, this program is designed to be improved continuously through stakeholder engagement and feedback. So, I mean, we're dealing right now with version 1 of this program, and you can download the entire standard. It's, 50, 60 pages on our website. You can peruse through it, and we, beyond just us wanting you to get certified, we want to know, what your impressions are, what your feedback, suggestions for future versions are. I think all of that is very valuable at this point.
Say the website for me. What's the website? Where should people go?
Yeah, go to responsiblehempstandard.com.
There you go, responsiblehempstandard.com. Are you guys going to have a presence at the Global Fiber Summit in Raleigh, North Carolina in July?
Yeah, we will certainly be there. We're really eager to connect and explore all of the opportunities that are emerging there in North Carolina. Eric, I know we've talked a lot about, how the Southeast United States is kind of a ripe place for the establishment and the infrastructure for textile grade hemp fiber.
And flax fiber.
Yeah. That's right. And yeah, I mean, I will say we have been in talks with a number of U.S. hemp fiber suppliers. And while our focus has kind of been a little bit more on the international markets and international suppliers, just because those supply chains are a little bit more mature, I think there's a huge opportunity. And ultimately, what we want to do is, the more that we can build the demand for this program using, maybe those more mature supply chains, I then think we can bring those opportunities, back to decorticators and suppliers here in the United States. And I think that there's definitely a lot of interest right now in American grown, American produced. We've heard that from a number of the mills that we're speaking with and the brands that we're speaking with. So I think the opportunity, is huge for these folks in the United States.
Amen to that. The opportunity is huge for these folks in the United States. Eric Singular, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time here today. And we'll see you in North Carolina in a few weeks.
See you there.
That was Eric Singular. You can learn more at responsiblehempstandard.com. And if you're going to be in Raleigh next month, you can learn more in person from Eric Singular himself. Okay, moving on to Act 3, Brush Mountain Survival. So when I first met Herb Grove back in 2019, he was thinking about becoming a hemp farmer. And then as I've gotten to know him over the years, he's been a hemp farmer, growing grain mostly up there on Brush Mountain. But this year, he is not so sure if it's even worth the trouble getting the permit. So we're going to find out what's happening up there. Herb Grove, Brush Mountain bison up there in Center County. How are you doing?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's been an interesting year so far.
Are we talking just about hemp or weather or everything in general?
Let's just talk about it. So I know it's raining here. I'm down in Chester County, and it's been like for the past week or two, it's like it rains and then it stops and then it rains. What's happening up there in Center County, rain-wise?
About the same way. It's brutal. We're getting 3-4 days of sun and then, moisture to keeping the ground wet. And you got to be pretty aggressive this year to get our jobs done. That's for sure.
Have you gotten in and got most of your stuff planted?
Yeah, we're good on row crops and everything. Small greens, we haven't really been successful at. Corn, soybeans are haze up. So we're actually in pretty good shape. I can't complain, but there's a lot of guys that are just trying to get it in when they can. Not the best planting conditions for sure. We got some replant stuff to do, but overall we're doing all right.
Can you remind us sort of like the operation, like describe Brush Mountain Farm, like how many acres you plant? Yeah,
we're Central PA. We own our farm on Brush Mountain. We raise bison, beef. We do a lot of custom crops for guys. We're putting in corn, soybeans. We work with sunflowers, canola, hemp, a lot of hay ground, pretty much whatever we can do and get into as far as ag's concerned or whatever helps pay the bills. We're going to be there.
Right. You got a trucking company up there too, right?
Yeah. We started out in the trucking company, so we stay pretty involved on a national level as far as moving freight all across the country. We run all 48 states in Canada. So which is a good fit to anything because you get to network with people all over pretty quickly. You know, you get to hear what's happening across the country when you're running that kind of outfit, I guess.
Is that also Brush Mountain Trucking, or what's the name of that operation?
Yeah, so it would be Brush Mountain Transport. You know, we started that first, and that's kind of what afforded us to get into the ag sector where our passion really lies. And we've been building on that for the last couple of years. So we're doing a lot with the beef. If anybody's familiar with the beef market, it's pretty crazy what's going on in the protein side of things when it comes to red meat.
Talk a little bit about that. What do you mean?
You know, record high prices. It's so dry in the West. Our cow herd numbers are really low. They've had a screwworm case in Mexico, and we import a lot of feeder cattle out of Mexico. They've shut the border down twice this year so far, so it's driven the price of feeders up. A lot of competition on feedlots, putting animals in their, in their feed. Feed's cheap this year. If anybody's watching the commodity markets, you know, a lot of stuff going on at the big level where commodities are relatively low, so feed's cheap. So we're all eager to fill up the lots because we have, you know, cheap feed. So It's really dry out west. The cow herd numbers are down in general. You know, guys are killing more heifers, processing more heifers than ever before just because the price is high. So it's tough decision making for a lot of guys for a lot of reasons. You know, do you want to sell your livestock because it's all-time high and capitalize on the profits, or retain more heifers and build our herds back up? So it's a lot of tough decisions that are going on in the ag sector for sure.
Yeah, for real.
And the bison kind of follows. You know, we raise more bison than we do beef, obviously, but the demand's high and the animals are low. Guys are the same deal, you know, cutting down on numbers out west because they don't have enough moisture to provide them with grass and feed. So it's been pretty challenging for the last couple months for sure.
Yeah. What's the size of your bison herd?
We're prominently feedlots, so we bring in a lot of feeders from all over the country. We try to hold right around the 300 mark on feed just to have the inventory for processing. That's the current time.
I was up at your place, a couple summers ago now. I think it was back in 23.
Yep.
And I got the tour. We saw the grain hemp up in the fields. I saw where you were drying the grain, and then I saw the bison, saw the farm. Are you still feeding the hemp grain to the bison as part of their rations?
No, right now we're kind of backed out of it. They made it legal for the chicken feed. The market is relatively 3 times what it was when we were feeding it. It's not so much a byproduct. It's not a crop that's an excess. You know, there's not a lot of it. There's just not enough guys producing hemp and hemp seeds to produce the meal. So the product's kind of limited. So the prices definitely priced us out of using it for proteins in our feed rations. Looking to get back into that position, but at this time, you know, we're predominantly feeding canola meal or sunflower meal as our protein.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
are you growing any hemp this year, or are you thinking about it?
Well, I'm not quite sure. You know, it's a very indecisive crop. We ran into a snag last year with our banking. The bank we had just dropped us like a ball of rocks with a phone call and canceled all our accounts because apparently corporate found out we had our hemp permit and they weren't interested in doing business. Put us in a really big bind in a really quick fashion. So we scrambled for a few months. We got that straightened out, and to find out that the bank that gave us the boot just acquired the bank we're at now. So we're kind of in a catch-22. You know, I mean, if we get our hemp permit this year and we lose our banking, and it's exhausting. It's such a joke. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So it's really put us in a position that, you know, we're not growing hemp for profit at this point. We're growing hemp for knowledge. And, you know, we were scheduled to do a grow this year with a Canadian variety that relatively gets tall, but we were going to try it further south to see if we can shorten the plant because the yields on the seeds are good.
Yeah.
So we were going to put it in a little bit later, you know, so we're still on a trial basis, but it's pretty tough to invest that kind of money and then worry about losing our banking at the same sense. So, we got some decisions to make here in the next couple of weeks pretty quick.
And that's just like puts like a fine point on it there. It's so dumb that the banks would even like, oh, you have a hemp permit. Therefore, it's like, what do they think you're doing over there? Like, I saw your farm. You had like 20 acres of grain hemp on this side of the road and 20 acres of grain hemp on that side. It was like, you're just growing it for seeds to feed to your animals. Like, that's just outrageous. And is it safe to mention the name of the bank, or should we skip over that?
I mean, I'm not going to hold back, but yeah, Northwest Bank's the one that gave us the boot, and they just acquired Jersey Shore State Bank. They take that transaction over in July. So, if anybody's ever lost their banking in a matter of seconds, the struggles that come with that. I mean, they gave us no heads up, no notice. There was no respect. There was nothing. They shut our account off, gave us a phone call. It was probably 2.5 weeks before we got the money that were in the accounts. And in the meantime, we had to cancel all the checks that were sent out in that time frame. So it makes you look a little negative on that part of it. I mean, it was just an embarrassing pain in the butt is all it comes down to. No respect, nothing. Thank God it was just the farming assets, the farming accounts, my personal accounts all got shut down with a phone call, and all our other business accounts were at another bank. But now all our other business accounts with the other bank are in jeopardy because nobody can even tell me why my banking got canceled. They don't know if it come off my permit, my social security number. I can't get a fine answer why we even got flagged for accounts. So, is it worth having a hemp permit and, taking several months to switch out banking? And of course they want to keep your loans because they're making profit. They just don't want any checking accounts there, Well, I don't want to pay them to do anything if you're not going to work with us. So it was probably one of the biggest hardships we've had in ag in a long time is to try and work through that. And, switching banks at that level isn't something you can do in a snap of a finger. I mean, it takes a couple of weeks to get everything organized and what you got to do. So it was definitely a hurdle I wasn't looking forward to, nor was I aware of it. I mean, if I'd had at least a window of opportunity to do something beforehand and prepare, there was nothing. I mean, it was literally a phone call that they had already shut the accounts down. It was over.
Yeah. Wow.
The local bank, the people at the bank, they all knew what we were doing. They couldn't believe it. They were just flabbergasted. I mean, they just couldn't understand how the corporate side could just pull a pin like that quick. So yeah, it was pretty frustrating, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And, when I spent time up with you a couple years ago, it was clear that you're like a pillar of the community there. Like you and your brother and your family, like, yeah, I mean, I imagine the people at the bank were like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. Like, we all try to work together. We're all on the same page, and everybody needs to be friends to make it all work. And yeah, it was a little bit of embarrassing, shell shocked at the same time, but we worked through it. We did good. We partnered with another new bank, to the area, and they've been phenomenal. And as always, everything happens for a reason. So the new bank really has some tools that work well for what we're doing, especially in the bison industry on a national level. So, they've been great to work with. So it was definitely a learning experience. I can't take it back, but I just don't want to do it again. So it really deciphers, this year, if we're going to grow and get our permit and take the risk of this bank, transaction, doing the same thing in the middle of harvest season when we can't afford the time to mess with it. It's just a big risk right now.
Yeah.
And it's just a joke. Like you said earlier, our country needs to get on the same page and just get this thing over with so we can do what we got to do as farmers and move forward.
Yeah. Do you think it's all about like weed, all about THC, all about like reefer madness?
Yeah, I'd have to say so. I mean, there's such a stigma on this plant based on people that have zero experience with this plant. If some of these people go out and play with it, maybe they think differently about what we're trying to do. I mean, that's my 2 cents. I think it's a joke, but what can I say?
When you were in elementary school, did they like give you a little baby tree on Arbor Day, send you home with a tree and say, here, go plant this, Herb?
I never even heard about Arbor Day, to be honest with you.
Really? They don't
answer that.
They don't have Arbor Day up that way? I think it's like the last Friday or Saturday in April or something like that. And when I was a kid, they would send everybody home with like a little spruce tree. Like around here in Chester County, there's a lot of trees that you're like, oh yeah, little Jimmy brought that home from school in 4th grade. But I guess what I'm thinking is maybe we should have a program where we send every kid home with like a fiber plant, right? Here, go grow some cannabis and learn how it's just a plant and a gift from God. Anyway.
I think that's a great idea, to be honest with you. I mean, and that's where our job as people, we're more educators than we are anything when it comes to, and I mean, we've educated more people about this plant than anything. And I think we're all passionate about it. And I got to tell you, I haven't found too many negatives with it. I just don't know why we're restricted to what we got to deal with to make it happen. I'm clueless.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, me neither. Yeah. It's just crazy. It's crazy. So I don't know. And then I don't know. We could get into a lot of stuff, but I know you're busy. You got work to do. What's on your agenda for today?
Today is we had a good storm come through. Once it dries out, we're in the process of putting up a new barn. So doing some land clearing, prepping for that. Just getting some maintenance stuff done and getting ready to go, getting pastures trimmed up, checking calves and making sure everybody's healthy on a day-to-day basis, and just everything that we got to get done around here for the most part.
Right on. That's cool. Floating. Yeah. Well, Herb, I appreciate you like offering the window into your world up there, because it's fascinating, and I like talking to you. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're welcome anytime. You're always a blast to hang out with, that's for sure.
Cool. Right on. Well, thank you. Yeah, maybe we'll head up that way this summer, and maybe you'll have some hemp in the ground by then. I'm hopeful.
Well, that would be awesome, and we'll see how it plays out here in the next couple of weeks.
All right. Thanks, Herb.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, there you go. Herb Grove from Brush Mountain up there in Center County. I do believe I will be headed up that way in August for Penn State's Ag Progress Days, so I do hope to stop by and spend some time with Herb there on the farm. And like we said, maybe he'll be growing some hemp by then. We'll see. So anyway, hope you enjoyed today's show. Thank you for listening. If you've got questions for me, you can email me. Send it to podcast@lancasterfarming.com. If you've got questions about the Responsible Hemp Standard or Virginia Hemp Month or anything, I've got links on the show page for this episode at lancasterfarming.com, where you can also sign up for our newsletter, get a subscription to our print edition, which does have a digital option, by the way. So if you live, I don't know, let's say in Utah or Arizona or somewhere where you don't want to get the newspaper sent to you, you could get a digital version just emailed to you. It's so great. There's so much in there. Seriously. Lancaster Farming newspaper is just a wealth. It's a treasure trove. They're not even paying me to say this. It's just how I feel. All right. So anyway, my name is Eric Herlock. I'm the senior digital editor at Lancaster Farming newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world, as I've hopefully already established. Anyway, don't forget about the Global Hemp Fiber Summit in Raleigh, North Carolina, sponsored by NIHC and hosted by NC State. All right, until next time, I'll see you in the newspaper. This episode of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2025 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written and recorded by Eric Herlock and engineered, mixed, and produced and all that by Justin Berger.